What if the roaring voice of DC, Brian Johnson, held a secret regret that even the most devoted fans never knew? For decades, we've celebrated his triumphs, the sheer power that defined an era. But behind the thunderous applause and the iconic albums lies a rarely discussed chapter, a shadow, a weight. Today, we delve into the unspoken regret that shaped Brian Johnson's journey with AC/DC, offering a poignant look at his personal reflections that will forever change how you see this rock legend. Welcome to Legend Story Vault, where timeless stories and epic legends come alive. We all know the story. The tragic loss of Bon Scott, the impossible search for a replacement, then the unexpected phone call that changed rock history. But the story we think we know, it's only half the picture. February 1980, AC/DC, gutted by the loss of their irreplaceable frontman, Bon Scott. The band's future hangs by a thread. Meanwhile, in Newcastle, England, Brian Johnson is rebuilding his life after his previous band, Geordie, had run its course. He's working odd jobs, wondering if his rock dreams are behind him. Then, the call. An audition. A chance. But it wasn't just excitement Brian felt stepping into that London rehearsal room. It was the crushing weight of expectation. He wasn't just auditioning, he was stepping into the void left by a legend, a god to many fans. Filling Bon Scott's shoes? It wasn't just pressure, it felt like an impossible mission. Fans were skeptical. Could anyone replace Bon? The public's apprehension was a palpable force. Brian knew he had to be himself, yet somehow honor the past. It was a tightrope walk over a chasm of doubt, and then, Back in Black, an earthquake. An album that defied gravity, selling over 50 million copies, becoming a monument in rock. Brian Johnson wasn't just accepted, he was triumphant. The voice was undeniable. The band was bigger than ever. But here's where the unspoken begins. While the world roared its approval while stadiums shook, what was happening inside Brian Johnson? What anxieties gnawed at him in the quiet moments, far from the spotlight? The triumph was real, but so was the cost. Imagine carrying the ghost of a beloved bandmate every single night, feeling the constant unspoken comparison, knowing that no matter how massive Back in Black became, it was born from tragedy. Was there a part of him that felt he was living someone else's dream? Or that his own identity was forever entangled with, and perhaps overshadowed by, Bon's legacy? This, we believe, is the core of Brian Johnson's unspoken regret, the feeling that he could never truly step out of Bon Scott's shadow. Not because he wasn't brilliant in his own right, he absolutely was, but because the circumstances of his joining were so profound, so tragic, that the comparison became inescapable. Think about it. His debut album was a tribute to Bon. Every interview early on inevitably circled back to replacing Bon. Every high note he hit was measured against Bon's gravelly roar. He became the new guy, the replacement, even after 35 years and countless iconic albums like For Those About to Rock, We Salute You and The Razor's Edge. Did he regret joining AC/DC? Absolutely not. He loved the band, the music, the fans. But the regret lies deeper. The regret of never being able to completely forge an identity separate from the narrative of replacement. The regret that his own incredible journey, his unique voice and personality, were perpetually framed by the ghost of the man who came before. He was always Brian Johnson of AC/DC, the one who replaced Bon Scott. Rarely just Brian Johnson, the rock star in his own right, on his own terms. This unspoken regret, this constant shadow, perhaps took its toll over decades. Then came another blow. His hearing deteriorated, forcing him off the road in 2016. It wasn't just the physical loss. It was being ripped away from the band, the stage, the connection with fans that had defined his life for 36 years. Was there regret in how he left? Not being able to say a proper goodbye on stage? Not being able to go out on his own terms, at the peak of his powers with the band? This likely compounded that deeper, older regret. The feeling of an incomplete story. An identity perpetually defined by beginnings and endings tied to others, rather than his own pure narrative. In recent years, Brian has spoken more openly about his hearing, about his love for AC/DC, about his life. He's found new ways to connect with music and fans. Has he found peace with that old shadow? Perhaps the regret isn't a burden anymore, but a quiet acknowledgement, a recognition of the unique, bittersweet path he walked. He gave AC/DC and the world something extraordinary after its darkest hour. He carried the torch with immense power and dignity. The shadow of Bon remains, but so does the immense light Brian Johnson created himself. Brian Johnson's unspoken regret isn't about failure or bitterness. It's about the profound complexity of stepping into legend. It's about the human cost of living up to the impossible, the quiet weight carried alongside the roaring triumph. It's the story of a man who gave his voice to keep a giant alive, all while grappling with the desire to be seen simply as himself. The next time you hear, "You shook me all night long," or "Back in Black," remember the journey. Remember the triumph, yes, but also the man behind the microphone. carrying a unique and deeply human regret. It doesn't diminish the legend, it deepens it. It makes Brian Johnson not just the voice of AC/DC, but a man who lived an extraordinary, complicated rock and roll life. What are your thoughts on this perspective? Does this change how you see Brian Johnson's journey? Share your reflections in the comments below. If you found this exploration into the heart of rock history meaningful, consider liking and subscribing for more deep dives into the stories behind the legends. Thanks for watching Legend Story Vault, where legends never fade and stories live forever.